This is WLRN News. I'm Nadege Green. For the next 2 weeks, you're going to be hearing stories in our series, Young Survivors, the Unspoken Trauma of Gun Violence.
When I see her, I see someone who loves her community, but also works for her community. I think it's easy for any of us to say the right things, but there's a huge difference between word and deed, and she has the deed part down.
What's unique is her honesty and her connection to the story that she's telling.
Her demonstrated care in everything she does as a journalist is so evident. And I think that's why people have responded to her work in the way they have, is you feel her care.
I am first generation Black American, born to Haitian parents. I'm a child of former farm workers. They worked in Homestead in the fields, picking tomatoes and okra and, doing the jobs that most immigrants do when they get here. I love Miami. I'm a Miami girl through and through. Miami as a community is definitely fractured. We don't talk about race in a lot of meaningful ways because it's easier to say we're diverse. Just because we have a diverse collective of folks here does not mean equality, but it's also a really beautiful place. It's a place that's very rich in history. I love Miami history, especially Black Miami history.
Through Nadege's work, you see how Black Miami's history is playing out in its today and how there's so many unresolved things that we need to deal with.
One of the things that we are taught in journalism is our jobs is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comforted, right? That your job is to be a watchdog journalist, that you're looking out for structural issues. That is the journalism that I was brought into. That was the mentorship and the folks who I looked up to. That was the journalism that I aspired to.
The first thing I would say about Nadege is that she is acutely aware of who she is and the community she lives in. And she's very good about surveying her environment and understanding when things need to be fixed.
One of the main issues in Miami-Dade is housing, access to safe and affordable housing. I always have to say safe because so much of the housing that is quote unquote affordable is substandard. In the public health world, they say, housing is like the biggest social determinant of health, right? Like if you're able to live in safe housing, affordable housing, it determines so much more about your well-being. I worked at the Herald, and after the Herald, I worked at WLRN. In both places, I covered local news, and especially at WLRN, I covered issues that were specific to the Black community and justice-related issues. Today, we introduce you to another Miami-Dade mom who was touched by gun violence. Serena Saul would have been getting her son ready for prom this month, but the 15-year-old was killed 3 years ago in Miami.
Several years ago, she talked to me and others about wanting to write about gun violence. And she wanted to write about it in a way that felt new.
I felt that we needed to focus on humanity as well. Like who are we talking about, right? That these aren't just faceless individuals, young Black man shot, young Black girl shot. They have names, they have ages, they have mothers and fathers and siblings.
When she and I met, I felt like she was also as passionate as I am, even more so about telling these stories, about giving people a voice.
I wanted to center the families of victims and directly impacted folks, that even if you weren't directly shot, living across the street from somewhere where shootings happen means you're impacted, because now it means you don't put your child next to the window anymore. That's an impact. In my transition to Community Justice Project, I'm the director of community research and storytelling, and I'm essentially kind of doing a lot of the same work that I've done, the same skill sets, which is researching community issues and figuring out how do you tell these stories in a way that have impact. Here is an issue, it impacts a community, how can we help give this information to the community, right? It's not about hoarding information for yourself, but it's building community power. It's building information power.
For as long as I've known Nadege, she has been telling the stories of people who are underrepresented. When you talk about catalysts, we're talking about people who are not just recognizing that something needs to be done, they're actually doing it.
She gives us a full picture of who we are, a picture that we don't often look at, a picture that we often look at pieces of. She connects all the dots and makes it plain, makes it very clear. And from there, we can grow into who we truly must be. That's why she's a catalyst for our community.